It is November 25th, 1177. A 16-year-old king, his hands numb, his face ravaged by leprosy, rides out of Jerusalem with fewer than 500 knights. Riding toward him are an estimated 26,000 of Saladin's finest soldiers. He destroys them. Not with numbers. Not with superior technology. With something far more dangerous: knowledge of terrain, disciplined command, and the will to fight on a body that is already dying. Now imagine a different scenario. 48 Delta Force operators, the most lethal soldiers on Earth, arrive at Jerusalem's gates. No backup. No air support. Just 48 men and their weapons. Could they take the city? The answer has been hiding in plain sight. Before we go deeper, you need to understand exactly what is at stake here. The year is 1183. Baldwin IV the Leper King rules the Kingdom of Jerusalem. He is 22 years old, almost completely blind, and has lost the use of both hands. By all logic, he should not be on a throne. He should not even be alive. But Jerusalem in 1183 is not a weak city. What the official record never mentioned was how heavily it was defended. The city walls are up to 14 feet thick, built and rebuilt by Crusader engineers over nearly a century. The Tower of David at the western gate can hold hundreds of soldiers. The garrison alone numbers between 2,000 and 4,000 trained knights and infantry. Surrounding Baldwin are the military forces of the Knights Templar, the Knights Hospitaller, and the Teutonic Knights, arguably the most disciplined fighting forces of the medieval world. Now consider the other side. 48 Delta Force operators. 1 squadron. Standard loadout: suppressed rifles, night vision goggles, breaching charges, anti-tank rockets, satellite communication, and enough ammunition for approximately 72 hours of sustained combat. No helicopter gunships. No resupply. No reinforcements. 48 men against a fortified city of 20,000. This looks like simple arithmetic. It is not. Here is what actually happens when military analysts run this scenario. The immediate assumption that Delta Force would be slaughtered at the gate is wrong. What the official record never mentioned was how vulnerable a medieval city is to exactly one thing: darkness. Baldwin IV's Jerusalem has no electric light, no motion sensors, and no radar. The city's 14-foot walls, designed to stop battering rams and siege towers, have no counter to a 12-man breaching team that can see in complete darkness, move in total silence, and place a shaped charge on a gate hinge in under 90 seconds. Picture the scene. It is 2 a.m. The guards on the northern wall are cold, tired, and have stood watch for 6 hours. Their vision extends about 30 feet in the moonlight. A Delta operator is already inside the wall. He passed beneath the guard's line of sight 8 minutes ago. The data tells a completely different story from what we assume about medieval fortifications. A 12th century stone wall that took 6 months to build can be breached by modern military explosives in under 3 seconds. The sound is catastrophic, but by then it no longer matters. In the first 45 minutes of a night operation, 48 Delta Force operators could realistically breach 3 separate entry points, neutralize the immediate gate guards, and establish a foothold inside the city walls with near-zero casualties on their side. The garrison would not even know which direction the attack was coming from. Baldwin IV's greatest military asset, his commander's brilliant understanding of terrain, becomes useless when the enemy is invisible, silent, and moving faster than any medieval mind is trained to track. But taking a foothold inside Jerusalem is not the same as capturing Jerusalem, and that distinction changes everything. Here is the deeper truth, the one nobody asks. What happens to 48 men after the sun rises? At approximately 0600 hours, Jerusalem wakes up. The garrison, up to 4,000 armed soldiers, begins to respond. Not with confusion, but with the one thing Delta Force specifically trains to fight against: mass. For centuries, military theorists have ignored the one variable that collapses the modern versus medieval scenario: ammunition. A Delta operator in sustained combat can expend hundreds of rounds per hour. A 48-man team, even carrying heavy loads, cannot sustain a full-intensity urban firefight beyond approximately 24 to 30 hours. against the garrison fighting in narrow medieval streets designed specifically to funnel attackers into kill zones. That ammunition advantage erodes faster than any modern planner expects. Now introduce the forgotten figure no one mentions, the civilian population. Jerusalem in 1183 houses an estimated 20,000 civilians, pilgrims, merchants, priests, and residents. In a modern urban warfare scenario, this creates an immediate humanitarian constraint. Delta Force doctrine is built around avoiding civilian casualties. Every engagement in Jerusalem's narrow streets becomes a constrained fire situation. Every judgment call gives the garrison time to regroup and advance. The second, more complex hidden truth is that Delta Force would not fail because of medieval weapons. They would fail because of medieval architecture. Jerusalem's city grid is a labyrinth of narrow alleys, covered markets, and stone buildings that become natural fortifications. Baldwin's commander's men, like Balian of Ibelin, one of the greatest defensive tacticians in Crusader history, would instinctively do the one thing that neutralizes modern firepower: split their forces into dozens of small groups and force 48 operators to fight on 40 different fronts simultaneously. A 48-man team is lethal in a single, focused direction. Against a three-dimensional, multi-directional defense across a 1 square kilometer city, the math begins to turn. And this leads to the real answer, which is not what you expect. The deepest layer of this scenario comes down to one question that military strategists almost never ask: what is the actual definition of capture? For Delta Force, capturing Jerusalem does not mean raising a flag over the Tower of David. Their doctrine-sensitive site exploitation means seizing one high-value objective, neutralizing command and control, and creating enough chaos that the enemy cannot mount a coordinated response. By that definition, the answer is yes. 48 Delta Force operators, inserted under the cover of darkness, could breach the walls, reach the royal citadel, and neutralize Baldwin IV's command structure, his senior commanders, his communication chain, and his military leadership within 4 hours of insertion. This changes everything we thought we knew about the ancient versus modern debate. King Baldwin IV, at the Battle of Montgisard in 1177, defeated a force 6 times larger not because his soldiers were stronger, but because he cut off Saladin's command and created chaos in the enemy's rear. Delta Force in 1183 Jerusalem would do exactly the same thing, with exactly the same outcome. They could not hold Jerusalem. They could never hold it. 48 soldiers cannot garrison a city of 20,000 people. But they could break it. With Baldwin IV's command structure gone, with 3 wall breaches and no coherent military leadership, the Crusader garrison would face the same psychological collapse that Saladin's army experienced at Montgisard. Not a military defeat, but a crisis of confidence so total that organized resistance becomes impossible. The data tells a completely different story from the one we assume. The most powerful military force in the modern world would not beat the medieval world with bullets. It would beat it with the same weapon Baldwin IV himself used against Saladin: decisive action, targeted disruption, and the absolute will to move when the enemy believes you cannot possibly be there. This is not just a thought experiment. The principles at the center of this scenario shape every modern conflict today. In 2011, a force entered a fortified compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. No sustained air support. No mass troop movement. Just precision targeting, speed, and the elimination of command and control. The compound fell in under 40 minutes. What the official record never mentioned was how closely that mission mirrored the logic of every great medieval commander, including Baldwin IV. The target is never the wall. The target is never the army. The target is always the decision-making center. Here is what this means for you. The gap between ancient and modern warfare is not as wide as we assume. The variables change. The physics does not. A defender with deep knowledge of terrain who can absorb chaos will always force a superior attacker to pay a price that firepower alone cannot cover. That was true in 1183 Jerusalem. It is still true today. 48 Delta Force operators could breach every wall Baldwin IV ever built. They could reach the throne. They could neutralize the command. But they could never hold what they took. And in warfare ancient or modern, the ability to hold is everything. If this made you rethink what military power actually means, that is exactly what we do on this channel. Next question: could 10 Navy SEALs have stopped the fall of Constantinople?